Alright, the last one, the last Khan Academy assignment is called ratio tables. And these are just expressing ratios, except for instead of having a fraction or a colon separating the numbers, or instead of this saying 32 to 3, it puts it in a table. So you can see kind of the progression of the proportional relationship that's happening here. So it says Stacia needs 32 diamonds for every 3 chandeliers she makes. Complete the table to see how many diamonds Stacia would need to make 6 chandeliers and then also 9 chandeliers. So I'll show you a couple different ways to think about this. Okay, so first of all, if you want to imagine, if you like proportions and the way that we've worked on it so far, where if you think about it like fractions that are set equal to one another, you think about this as 32 over 3 is equal to x over 6. So this is the number that we're looking for. And you can solve this just like a proportion. You could take 32 times 6 and then divide by the leftover number here, 3. It's one way to do it. The other way you can think about it is you can think about as you go from 3 chandeliers to 6 chandeliers, what number are you multiplying to get from 3 to 6? You're multiplying by 2 times 2 here to get from 3 to 6. So if these are proportions, which they are, then if you multiply the bottom number by 2, you also need to do the same thing to the top number to get your proportional number here. So 32 times 2 is 64. So 32 times 2 is 64. If I check that using the traditional solving proportions method that we've done so far, 32 times 6 is 192. Divide that by the leftover number here, 3, and it checks out. It gets 64. So that's one way to think about that. When you're going to this last proportion, so number of diamonds, the ratio of number of diamonds to number of chandeliers, it's a little bit trickier to know what number is the multiplier here. What number you have to multiply 6 by to get 9. The reason why is because if you multiply 6 times 1, you get 6, which is lower than 9. If you multiply 6 times 2, you get 12, which is greater than 9. So the multiplier is some number between 1 and 2, so it's going to be a decimal or a fraction. So that's not immediately apparent. So probably the best way to solve this part over here is to think about it as a proportion. So now we're looking at this ratio, 64 over 6 equals some number over 9. So we're going to cross multiply 64 times 9. 64 times 9 is 576. 64 times 9, so you multiply the diagonal numbers, and then you take that product and you divide it by the leftover number here, which is 6. So what you get is 96. 96. And again, we solve that using our traditional solving proportions method. Because even though these are ratios in a table, these are proportional ratios. These are equivalent ratios. So you can solve these just like proportions because equivalent ratios are proportions. So 64 times 9, 576, divided by that leftover number 6, gets you that top number of 96.